The massive doors of Galactic Trade Station Omega-7 opened with a deep hiss. Commander Hyunwoo stepped through first, his black boots clicking against the metal floor. Behind him walked 3 other humans, all wearing simple blue uniforms with Earth's symbol on their shoulders. Sojin carried a small bag of tools and looked around with wide eyes. Everything here was huge. The ceiling stretched up so high she could barely see it. Strange lights floated in the air without any wires. The air smelled like metal and something sweet she couldn't name. Tae-min held a small device that beeped, softly. His job was to talk to the aliens, but right now the device was quiet. The aliens weren't saying anything yet. They were just watching. Yoonji walked at the back of the group. Her hand rested near her belt, but she carried no weapons. Earth had told them to come in peace. Still, her eyes moved constantly, watching everything. The main hall was filled with creatures that looked nothing like humans. Some walked on 6 legs and had shells like giant bugs. Others floated in the air, their bodies made of what looked like living crystal. A few had long arms that moved like snakes, covered in purple skin. All of them stopped what they were doing to stare at the humans. Hyunwoo had read about these aliens in the files Earth had given him, but seeing them was different. The bug-like ones were called Vextar. They were soldiers and loved to fight. The crystal ones were Quinn. They studied things and were very smart. The purple ones with snake arms were Rawl. They bought and sold things across the galaxy. A Vextar with bright red shell markings stepped forward. This one was bigger than the others, with scars across his face and arms. His name was Thrix, and he was their war leader. "So these are the famous humans," Thrix said. His voice sounded like rocks grinding together. "They look weak. Where is their armor? Where are their weapons?" Hyunwoo stepped forward and smiled. "We don't need armor for a peace meeting. I'm Commander Hyunwoo. We're here to talk about trade and friendship between our people." Thrix laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the hall. Other Vextar joined in. Even some of the Rawl made clicking noises that might have been laughter. "Friendship?" Thrix pointed at Hyunwoo with one of his 4 arms. "Your skin is so thin. I can see blood moving under it. Your bones look like they would break if I touched them. You have no claws, no shell, no natural weapons at all." A Quinn floated closer. Its crystal body sparkled with different colors as it spoke. "The humans do seem quite fragile," it said in a voice like wind chimes. "Perhaps they evolved on a very safe world with no dangers." Sojin looked at Tae-min and raised her eyebrows. A safe world? Earth was many things, but safe wasn't one of them. Thrix walked in a circle around the humans, looking them up and down like he was buying meat at a market. "I have fought creatures from 100 worlds. I have killed beasts that could crush stone with their bare hands. But you humans..." He stopped in front of Hyunwoo. "You look like you would die if someone looked at you too hard." "We're tougher than we look," Hyunwoo said calmly. "Are you?" Thrix's eyes gleamed. "Prove it." The hall went quiet. Every alien stopped moving. Even the floating lights seemed to dim. Yoonji took a small step forward, but Hyunwoo held up his hand to stop her. "What did you have in mind?" Hyunwoo asked. Thrix pulled out a weapon from his belt. It was sleek and black, with blue lights running along its side. "This is a plasma rifle. On its lowest setting, it can burn through most armor. It would kill any Rawl instantly. It would badly hurt even a Quinn." He pointed it at Hyunwoo's chest. "Let me shoot you with it. If you survive, we'll believe you're not completely helpless." Several aliens made shocked noises. A few Rawl moved, away from the group. "Thrix," one of the Quinn said, "this could kill the human. That would end any chance of peace talks." "Exactly," Thrix grinned, showing teeth like broken glass. "If humans are too weak to survive one small plasma bolt, they have no business in our galaxy." Hyunwoo looked at his team. Sojin looked worried. Taemin was checking his translation device to make sure he understood correctly. Yoonji looked angry but trusted her commander. "All right," Hyunwoo said. "All right?" Thrix seemed surprised. "Shoot me." The hall became so quiet that Hyunwoo could hear his own heartbeat. Every alien eye was on him. Some were excited to see violence. Others looked worried about what would happen next. Thrix raised his weapon and aimed it at Hyunwoo's chest. "Any last words, human?" "Just one question," Hyunwoo said. "After you shoot me, can we start the meeting? I'd like to get home in time for dinner." Thrix's finger pulled the trigger. A bright blue bolt of plasma shot across the hall. It hit Hyunwoo, right in the center of his chest with a sound like thunder. Light flashed everywhere. The air filled with the smell of burned metal and ozone. When the light faded, every alien in the hall stared in shock. Hyunwoo was still standing. He wasn't hurt. He wasn't even breathing hard. The plasma had hit his uniform and simply disappeared, like water hitting a stone. Small wisps of steam rose from the fabric, but that was all. Hyunwoo looked down at his chest, then back up at Thrix. "Is that it?" He brushed at his uniform with his hand. "I think you might have left a small mark." Thrix stared at his weapon, then at Hyunwoo, then back at his weapon. "That's impossible. This weapon can melt steel." "Oh." Hyunwoo nodded. "Well, our uniforms have thermal regulation fibers, standard issue. They keep us comfortable in hot or cold weather." He straightened his collar. "Though I have to say, that was a bit warm." The silence stretched on and on. Aliens looked at each other, then back at the human who had just survived a plasma blast without even blinking. Finally, a raw merchant spoke up. "How are you still alive?" Hyunwoo shrugged. "Good fabric, I guess." He looked around the hall at all the shocked faces. "Now then, are we ready to begin negotiations? I believe you wanted to discuss trade agreements." Thrix lowered his weapon with shaking hands. For the first time in his life, the great Vexitar warrior had no idea what to say. And that was when the galaxy began to learn that humans were not like other species at all. 3 days had passed since Thrix shot Commander Hyunwoo with the plasma rifle. The story spread through the trade station like fire. Every alien who heard it wanted to see the humans for themselves. Sojin was fixing a broken air filter in their small guest quarters when the door chimed. She opened it to find a tall Quinn floating outside. Its crystal body sparkled with excited colors. "Greetings, human Sojin. I am Zilof, Chief Science Officer of this station. May I speak with your commander?" Hyunwoo looked up from his data pad. "What can I do for you?" Zilof's crystals turned a deep blue color. "We need to understand how you survived that plasma blast. For the safety of both our species, we must run some tests before we can begin formal trade talks." "What kind of tests?" Yoonji asked from across the room. "Simple compatibility tests, nothing dangerous. We just need to know what conditions humans can survive in." Hyunwoo thought for a moment. Earth had told him to cooperate with the aliens as much as possible. "All right. But Sojin watches everything you do." An hour later, they stood in the station's medical bay. The room was filled with strange machines and floating screens. Dr. Glix, a blob-like creature with dozens of eyes, waited for them. "We start with basic environmental tests," Zilof explained. "First, we check how much radiation you can handle." They led Hyunwoo into a small chamber. Through the thick glass window, Sojin watched as green light filled the room. Numbers on. A screen climbed higher and higher. "That's enough," Dr. Glick shouted. "Any more and even a Vextar would get sick." But Hyunwoo just stood there looking bored. When they let him out, he asked, "Is that all?" "I was hoping for something more interesting." Zilof's crystals flashed with confusion. "That was 50 times the safe level for most species." "Oh." Hyunwoo scratched his head. "Well, on Earth we get about that much radiation every time we go to the beach." The aliens looked at each other in shock. Next, they tested gravity. They put Hyun-woo in a machine that spun him around, creating forces that would crush most creatures. The numbers on the screen went up and up. 3 times normal gravity. 5 times. 8 times. "Stop the machine!" Dr. Glix cried. "He'll be—" turned to paste. But Hyun-woo was just sitting there, eyes closed like he was taking a nap. When the machine stopped, he opened his eyes and smiled. That was nice. Very relaxing. "Do you have any higher settings?" "Higher." Zilof's voice cracked. "That force would flatten a roll into soup." "Really?" Hyun-woo stood up and stretched. "We have rides like that at our amusement parks. Kids love them." By now, a crowd of aliens had gathered outside the medical bay. Word was spreading that the humans were doing impossible things again. Tae-min joined them for the next test. Dr. Glix wanted to try different air mixtures to see what humans could breathe. "This gas is poison to most life forms," the doctor explained, filling a chamber with yellow smoke. "Even a tiny amount would kill a Quinn instantly." Tae-min walked into the chamber and took a deep breath. "Smells like rotten eggs," he said. "Kind of like the hot springs back home." He stayed in the poisonous gas for 10 minutes, talking normally the whole time. When he came out, Dr. Glix checked him with every scanner in the medical bay. Tae-min was perfectly healthy. "Impossible," the doctor whispered. "That gas should have melted his lungs." "Oh, we breathe worse stuff than that in our cities," Tae-min said cheerfully. "You should smell the air near our factories." Just then, Dae-hyun arrived with his lunch. He was the team's plant expert, and he had brought food from Earth. The smell filled the room as he opened his container. "What is that horrible stench?" Dr. Glix backed away. "Kimchi," Dae-hyun said, taking a big bite. "Want some?" He offered the container to Zilof, who scanned it with a small device. The crystal being's colors turned bright red with alarm. "This food contains 17 different toxins. It would kill most species before they could swallow it." Dae-hyun took another bite. "Really? We eat this every day. My grandmother makes it even spicier than this." Dr. Glix quickly scanned Dae-hyun's blood. The toxins were there, but they weren't hurting him. His body was breaking them down like they were nothing. "You eat poison for fun?" Zilof asked weakly. "We call it flavor," Dae-hyun said with a grin. The final test was supposed to be simple. Dr. Glix wanted to give the humans a mild sedative, just to see how their bodies processed drugs. This amount would put a Vextar to sleep for 3 days, the doctor explained, filling a small injector. Tae-min rolled up his sleeve. "Go ahead." The alien injected the drug and waited, and waited, and waited. After an hour, Tae-min yawned once. "Is something supposed to happen?" Dr. Glix increased the dose, then increased it again, and again. "How much have you given him?" So-jin asked, checking the readouts. "Enough to knock out a whole Vextar army," Dr. Glix whispered. Tae-min yawned again and rubbed his eyes. "I feel a little sleepy. Maybe I should have some coffee." "Coffee?" Zilof asked. So-jin pulled out a small packet from her bag. "It's a drink we make from plant seeds. Keeps us awake." She made a cup of coffee using hot water from the medical bay. The smell made several aliens step back. Dr. Glix scanned the coffee and nearly fainted. "That liquid contains enough stimulants to give a Rawl a heart attack." Tae-min drank the whole cup in 3 gulps. Immediately, his eyes brightened and the sleepiness disappeared completely. "Much better," he said. "You know, back on Earth, some people drink 10 cups of this stuff every day." By now, the crowd outside had grown huge. Aliens pressed against the windows, trying to see what impossible thing the humans would do next. Zilof's crystals had turned a pale, frightened color. "We need to run one final test, the most important one." They led Hyun-woo to an airlock at the edge of the station. Through the window, they could see empty space filled with stars. "Space exposure," Dr. Glix explained. "No creature can survive in vacuum without a full environmental suit." The cold would freeze you instantly. The lack of air would make your blood boil. The radiation would cook you from the inside. They offered Hyunwoo their best spacesuit. It was huge and bulky, with thick armor plating and multiple air systems. Hyunwoo looked at it and shook his head. "That looks heavy. Can I just wear this?" He held up a simple oxygen mask connected to a small air tank. "Just that?" Dr. Glix's voice was barely a whisper. "And maybe a pair of gloves," Hyunwoo added. "My hands get cold easily." They watched through the airlock window as Hyunwoo stepped into space wearing nothing but his uniform, the oxygen mask, and thin gloves. The temperature was almost 300 degrees below zero. Radiation from the nearby star poured down on him. Hyunwoo pulled out a small tablet and began taking notes, completely ignoring the deadly environment around him. Ice crystals formed on his skin and immediately turned to gas. His breath created small clouds that froze and disappeared. After 15 minutes, he knocked on the airlock door. They let him back in. "How was it?" Sojin asked. Hyunwoo pulled off his oxygen mask. "Cold, but not too bad. Kinda like winter back home." He looked at his tablet. "The battery died, though. That's annoying." Dr. Glix stared at him with all dozen eyes. "You survived hard vacuum for 15 minutes. That should be impossible." "Should it?" Hyunwoo shrugged. "I've been in worse places. You should see what our Arctic researchers go through." The crowd of aliens outside had gone completely silent. They stared at the humans like they were looking at ghosts. Zillow floated closer to Sojin. "What kind of world did you come from?" the crystal being asked quietly. Sojin thought about Earth, about hurricanes and earthquakes, about volcanoes and ice ages, about all the ways their planet tried to kill them every single day. "Just a normal one," she said. The research ship Infinite Inquiry was the biggest vessel Hyejin had ever seen. It stretched for miles through space, covered with sensors and laboratories. Scientists from across the galaxy worked here, trying to answer the universe's biggest questions. Now they all wanted to answer one simple question: how were humans still alive? Hyejin floated through the ship's main corridor, following a Quinn guide named Zillow. Her magnetic boots clicked against the metal floor. Behind her walked Bitna, a geologist who had joined their team from Earth's deep mining stations. "The Council is very excited to meet you," Zillow said. Its crystal body pulsed with nervous energy. "We have been studying the data from your tests for weeks. The results make no sense." They entered a huge chamber filled with floating screens and holographic displays. Dozens of aliens worked at strange machines. In the center, 3 beings waited around a large table. Thrix was there, the Vextar warrior who had shot Hyunwoo. Next to him sat Elder Ralix, an old merchant with skin like purple leather. The third was Zillow's superior, a massive Quinn whose crystal body sparkled with rainbow colors. "Welcome, humans," the large Quinn said. "I am Senior Researcher Kolnith. We need your help to solve a mystery." Hyejin sat down at the table. The chair was built for creatures much larger than humans, so her feet didn't touch the floor. "What mystery?" Kolnith waved one of its crystal arms. The air above the table filled with images. Hyejin saw a blue planet covered with white clouds. "This is your homeworld," Kolnith said. "We have been studying it from long distance. According to our measurements, this planet should not be able to support complex life." Bitna leaned forward. "What do you mean?" More images appeared. Charts and numbers filled the air. Thrix pointed at them with one of his 4 arms. "Your world has weather that could destroy cities," he said. "Storms with winds that could tear apart our strongest buildings. We have seen images of these hurricanes." "Oh, those," Bitna nodded. "Yeah, they're pretty bad. We just go inside and wait for them to pass." Elder Ralix made a choking sound. "Just go inside?" These storms have more energy than our most powerful weapons. And the earthquakes, Kolneth continued. Your planet's surface moves and shakes, constantly. Whole mountains rise and fall. How do you build anything permanent? We don't, Hyejin said simply. We just rebuild when things fall down. It happens all the time. The aliens stared at her. Zilof's crystals flickered with confusion. But the volcanic activity, Zilof said. We detected explosions that could wipe out entire continents, mountains that spew liquid rock into the sky. Bitna laughed. You mean volcanoes? Yeah, we have lots of those. I work near them sometimes. The heat is nice in winter. You work near them? Thrix's voice cracked. Sure, lots of good minerals around volcanoes. Just have to wear the right clothes. Bitna pulled out her datapad and showed them pictures. Here's me last month, taking samples from an active lava flow. In the picture, Bitna stood next to a river of molten rock, wearing what looked like a simple white suit. She was smiling and giving a thumbs up. Dr. Glix, the blob-like medical officer, floated closer to look. That suit cannot possibly protect you from such heat. It's just a standard heat suit, Bitna said. Nothing fancy. Gets a bit warm, but not too bad. Kolneth brought up more images. These showed Earth's ice caps and frozen oceans. Your planet goes through regular ice ages, the crystal being said. Periods where most of the surface freezes solid. How does any life survive? We adapted, Hyejin said. Humans have lived through several ice ages. We just learned to make fire and build better shelters. You survived ice ages? Elder Ralix whispered. Entire planetary freezing events? Well, some of us died, Hyejin admitted. But enough survived to keep going. That's how evolution works. Subin had been quiet until now. She was the team's psychologist, brought along to help the aliens understand human behavior. Now she spoke up. May I ask why this surprises you so? Much? Thrix laughed, but it sounded nervous. Because death worlds like yours don't produce intelligent life. They produce extinction. Death world? Bitna asked. Kolneth's crystals turned a deep red color. That is what we call planets too dangerous for complex life. Worlds with extreme weather, geological instability, radiation exposure, and biological competition. Your world rates as a Class 12 death world, Zilof added. The most dangerous classification we have. Most species would die within hours of landing there. Subin nodded slowly. I see. So you evolved on safer planets. Much safer, Elder Ralix said. My homeworld has gentle rains and steady temperatures. The ground never shakes. No storms, no volcanoes, no ice ages. That sounds boring, Bitna said. The old Rawl made a shocked noise. Boring? It sounds peaceful. But how do you grow stronger without challenges? Subin asked. How do you learn to solve problems if nothing goes wrong? The aliens looked at each other. It was clear they had never thought about this before. Hyejin pulled out her own datapad. Let me show you something. She brought up a map of Earth. This is where humans live. Red dots covered the planet. They were everywhere, in deserts and jungles, on mountains and near volcanoes, in the frozen Arctic and on tiny islands. You live everywhere, Zilof whispered. Of course, Hyejin said. Why wouldn't we? Because most of those places would kill us, Thrix said flatly. Bitna pointed at a cluster of dots in the ocean. Those are our underwater cities, people who live on the sea floor. Underwater? Dr. Glix's eyes bulged. The pressure would crush most creatures. And these dots in the white areas? Elder Ralix asked. Antarctica research stations, Hyejin said. Scientists who study ice and weather. They stay there year-round. In the middle of an ice age zone? It's not that cold, Bitna shrugged. Just bring a good coat. Subin brought up another image. This one showed human children playing in a park. This is how our young learn, she explained. They run and climb and fall down. They compete with each other. They face small dangers every day. In the image, kids were climbing tall trees, jumping over streams, and wrestling with each other. To the aliens, it looked like chaos. "Your children fight each other?" Thrix asked. "Not really fight," Subin said. "They play games that teach them to be strong and smart, how to win and how to lose, how to get hurt and recover." "You let your young get hurt?" Dr. Glick sounded horrified. "Small hurts teach them to avoid big hurts," Subin explained. "Pain is a teacher." Kolneth's crystals flickered rapidly. "So every human is trained from birth to survive danger. We don't think of it as training," Hyejin said. "It's just normal life." "Normal life," Elder Rollix repeated slowly. "What you call normal life would be considered extreme survival training for our species." Bitna laughed. "Really? But we haven't even told you about the fun stuff yet." "Fun?" "Stuff," Zillof asked weakly. "Sports, adventure tourism, extreme hobbies." Bitna's eyes lit up. "Wait until you hear about mountain climbing and deep-sea diving and skydiving." The aliens went very quiet. Finally, Thrix spoke. "You mean humans do dangerous things by choice? For entertainment?" "Well, yeah," Bitna said. "Life's boring if there's no risk." Dr. Glix made a sound like air escaping from a balloon. "You actively seek out danger for pleasure." "Don't you?" Subin asked. "No!" all the aliens said at once. Subin smiled. "That explains a lot about the differences between our species." Kolneth floated back from the table. "We need time to process this information. The implications are—" It paused. "Disturbing." As the meeting ended, Hyejin heard Zillof whisper to another Quinn. "They don't just survive their death world. They enjoy it." Walking back to their quarters, Bitna shook her head. "I still can't believe they think Earth is dangerous." "Wait until they find out about our bacteria," Hyejin said with a grin. "Or our weather," Subin added. "Or our food." Bitna laughed. Behind them, through the ship's corridors, word was already spreading. Humans didn't just come from a death world. They had turned survival into an art form. The alarm bells rang through the Confederation fleet like screaming metal birds. Admiral Ji-hoon stood on the bridge of his ship, watching the enemy appear on their screens. The Krex Empire had come to finish what they started. "How many ships?" he asked his weapons officer, Su Young. 200, sir. Maybe more." She checked her instruments. "They have us outnumbered 3-1. Admiral Veltar, the Confederation fleet commander, appeared on the communication screen. The old Quinn's crystals were flashing with panic colors. "Admiral Ji-hoon," Veltar said, "you must retreat immediately. Your ships cannot survive this battle." Ji-hoon looked at the enemy fleet through his bridge windows. The Krex ships were huge, covered with energy shields that glowed like blue fire. Their weapons could tear apart planets. "Retreat?" Ji-hoon asked. "We just got here." "Your vessels have no energy shields," Veltar continued. "No gravitational. Weapons, no quantum disruptors. Against Krex technology, you will be destroyed in minutes." Captain Su Young turned from her station. "Sir, the Krex are opening fire on the Confederation ships." Through space, beams of pure energy lanced out from the enemy fleet. They hit the Confederation vessels, overloading their shields and tearing holes in their armor. 3 ships exploded in the first few seconds. "All human ships," Ji-hoon said into his communicator. "Move to attack formation." "Attack?" Veltar's voice cracked. "You cannot attack the Krex directly. No one has ever survived direct combat with them." But the human ships were already moving. Instead of running away or staying back to fight at long range, they flew straight toward the enemy fleet. The Krex computers must have been confused. They had been programmed to fight enemies who used energy shields and stayed far away. But the human ships had no shields at all, just thick metal armor. And they kept getting closer. "Jin Woo, take your Marines and get ready for boarding actions," Ji-hoon ordered. Marine Commander Jin-woo grinned from his transport ship. Finally, some real action. The Kreks opened fire on the human fleet, plasma beams that could melt through. Any known shield hit the human ships directly, but instead of being destroyed, the ships just kept coming. Their steel and ceramic armor glowed red-hot from the plasma hits, but it didn't break. Impossible, Veltar whispered. How are your ships still intact? Good engineering, Su-young said simply. She returned fire with the human ship's main, guns. The projectiles were simple chunks of metal fired at incredible speed. When they hit the Kreks' energy shields, they passed right through like the shields weren't even there. The first Krek ship to be hit simply came apart. Its hull cracked like an egg, spilling air and debris into space. Direct hit, Su-young reported. Enemy ship destroyed. More human ships joined the attack. They flew in patterns that made no sense to the Kreks' computers. Sometimes they flew straight at the enemy. Sometimes they suddenly turned and attacked from the side. Sometimes they did things that military logic said they should never do. Tactical Officer Ye Jin was in charge of fleet movements. Her job was to tell the other human ships where to go and what to attack. All ships, ignore the big targets. She ordered. Go for the small ones first. That makes no tactical sense, Veltar said. The large ships are the greatest threat. Maybe, Ye Jin said, but the small ones look scared. She was right. The smaller Krek ships were trying to hide behind the larger ones. When the human ships focused on them, they started to run away. Krek's vessels are retreating, Su-young reported. Some of them, Ji-hoon corrected. The big ones are still here. Why? Largest Krek's ship was bigger than a small moon. It had weapons that could destroy entire fleets. Its shields were so strong that most races had never found a way through them. It fired its main weapon at Ji-hoon's ship. The beam was so powerful it could have carved a hole through a planet. The beam hit Ji-hoon's ship right in the front. Metal, melted, and armor plating glowed white-hot. Alarms rang through every corridor. Damage report, Ji-hoon called out. Forward armor is gone, the damage control officer reported. But the hull is holding. We're still operational. Still operational? Veltar couldn't believe it. That weapon just hit you with the power of a small star. Yeah, it was pretty bright, Ji-hoon admitted. Good thing we wore sunglasses. Commander Han-sol was piloting a smaller human ship nearby. He saw that Ji-hoon's vessel was damaged and made a decision. Admiral, he said over the radio, my ship's engines are damaged. I'm going to ram the big one. Han-sol, wait, Ji-hoon started to say. But Han-sol had already changed course. His ship flew straight toward the massive Krek's vessel, engines burning. At full power, the Kreks fired everything they had at the small human ship. Dozens of plasma beams hit it. The armor melted away piece by piece, but Han-sol kept flying forward. Why don't you retreat? He heard a Krek's voice on the emergency channel. Your ship is destroyed. You will die, Han-sol laughed. Retreat? We were just getting warmed up. His ship hit the Krek's superweapon right in its main power core. The explosion lit up half the solar system. When the light faded, the giant Krek's ship was gone. In its place was a slowly expanding cloud of metal and gas. The remaining Krek's ships stopped fighting. For the first time in their history, they had met an enemy they couldn't understand or defeat. This is Krek's Fleet Command, a mechanical voice said over the radio. We request immediate ceasefire talks. Admiral Veltar's crystals flashed with amazement. They're surrendering. The Krek's Empire is asking for peace talks. Jinwoo sounded disappointed over the radio. Already? But we were just getting started. My Marines haven't even boarded any of their ships yet. Why did they give up so quickly? Veltar asked. The battle only lasted 20 minutes. Ji-hoon looked at the wreckage floating around them. Human ships were already moving to rescue survivors, from both sides. They're not used to fighting enemies who treat deadly combat like a fun game, he said. The Kreks are logical. They can adapt to any reasonable enemy strategy, but they can't adapt to enemies who do unreasonable things. Unreasonable things? Like flying directly into enemy fire, or ramming ships 50 times bigger than yours, or treating a battle like it's just another day at work. Ji-hoon smiled. Humans don't fight the way military computers expect us to. Su-young was already analyzing the enemy technology. Sir, I think I know why the Kreks couldn't defeat us. Oh? Their weapons are designed to overload energy shields, but we don't use energy shields. We just use thick metal armor. Their most powerful weapon is useless against our simplest defense. And their cyber warfare systems, added Communications Officer Tae-min, who had joined them from the research station. I intercepted some of their hacking attempts. They're trying to take control of our ship computers. Any luck? Ji-hoon asked. They can't figure out how our systems work. Human computer design is too chaotic for their programs to understand. Through the view screen, they could see Kreks ships approaching under white flags of surrender. The war, that had lasted for decades, was ending after a single battle. Admiral, Veltar said quietly, how did you know you would win? Ji-hoon thought about Earth, about all the wars humans had fought against each other, about how they had learned to survive impossible odds and keep fighting when victory seemed hopeless. We didn't know we would win, he said. We just knew we wouldn't give up. In the distance, more human ships were arriving. News of the victory was already spreading through the galaxy. The species that had seemed too weak to survive had just defeated the most feared empire in known space, and they had done it by being exactly what they had always been: unreasonable, stubborn, and too tough to quit. 6 months after the war ended, Ambassador Dong Min stood on the observation deck of New Geneva Peace Station. Through the huge windows, he could see ships from across the galaxy docked at the massive space station. Human vessels sat next to Vextar warships. Quinn research craft floated beside Rawl trading vessels. Even former Kreks ships were there, now painted with friendship symbols instead of war markings. The station itself was a marvel of cooperation. Human engineers had worked with alien architects to build something neither species could have made alone. It was strong like human construction, but beautiful like alien art. The morning briefing is ready, Ambassador, said his assistant, Ne-young. She was the station's cultural exchange officer, helping aliens understand human customs and humans understand alien ways. They walked through corridors filled with beings from dozens of worlds. Vextar warriors now studied human military tactics instead of planning invasions. Quinn scientists worked alongside human researchers, learning how to think in new ways. Rawl merchants had discovered that humans would buy almost anything if you made it look interesting enough. The briefing room was packed with representatives from every major species in the galaxy. At the head of the table sat Dr. Yu-jin, who had become the director of the first Galactic University. Her job was to teach aliens how to survive in a dangerous universe. Good morning, everyone, Dr. Yu-jin said. Let's start with the education. Reports. Zilloff, the Quinn scientist, floated up from its seat. Its crystal body sparkled with excited colors. The Survival Sciences program is beyond successful. We have 300 alien students learning human techniques. What are they learning exactly? Asked Elder Ralix, who had become the trade minister for the new alliance. Basic survival skills, Dr. Yu-jin replied. How to make fire without technology, how to find food and water on hostile worlds, how to build shelter using only natural materials. Thrix, the Vextar warrior, laughed. Yesterday, I watched a group of Quinn students try to climb a tree. It took them 6 hours to reach the first branch. Trees are more difficult than they appear, Zilloff said defensively. Humans make it look easy because they have been climbing them since childhood. Speaking of childhood, Na-young said, we need to talk about the playground incident. Everyone turned to look at her. Dr. Yu-jin sighed. What happened now? A group of young Rawl visited the human children's area, Na Young explained. They saw human children playing on what we call jungle gyms, metal structures for climbing and swinging. And, Dongmin asked, they thought it was some kind of military training course. They filed a complaint saying we were turning children into soldiers. The room went quiet for a moment. Then Thrix started laughing. Soon, even the serious Quinn were making their chiming sounds of amusement. Human children train for war by playing games, Thrix said. I should have expected that. It's not war. Training, Dr. Eugene protested. It's just fun. Fun that happens to make them stronger, faster, and braver, Elder Rowlix pointed out. Your species turns everything into survival practice. Chang Ho, a human businessman, joined the meeting late. He ran several mining operations in places other species couldn't survive. His latest project was harvesting gas from inside a star's atmosphere. Sorry I'm late, he said, sitting down heavily. Just got back from the solar mining platform. How's the operation going? Dongmin asked. Great. Production is up 30%. The Krex workers are really getting the hang of it. Dr. Glix, the medical officer, made a worried sound. You have Krex working inside a star? Just the outer atmosphere, Chang Ho said. It's only about 6,000 degrees. Not too bad if you wear the right protective gear. 6,000 degrees is not too bad? Zilof's crystals flickered with disbelief. Well, it's hot, Chang Ho admitted. But the Krex are machines, so they handle heat better than biological creatures, and the pay is really good. Na Young pulled out her datapad. That reminds me, we need to discuss human entertainment again. Oh no, Elder Rowlix groaned. What now? The Vextar have been watching human movies, Na Young said. They think. They're documentary films about human military tactics. Thrix nodded seriously. The film called Die Hard was very educational. It showed how one human can defeat an entire army using only simple tools and determination. That's not a documentary, Dr. Eugene said. It's fiction, made up for entertainment. Fiction? Thrix looked confused. But the human in the movie survived explosions, gunfire, and falling from great heights. We thought it was a training video. Humans make up stories about surviving impossible situations for fun, Na Young explained. They call them action movies. You create fictional scenarios of extreme danger for pleasure? Zilof asked weakly. Well, yeah, Chang Ho said. Real. Life can get boring sometimes. Dr. Glix floated closer to the table. I have been studying human medical data. The results are concerning. What kind of concerning? Dongmin asked. Humans regularly engage in activities that would be considered suicide attempts by other species. They call them sports. Sports? Elder Rowlix asked. Competitive games where humans try to hurt each other in structured ways, Dr. Glix explained. Boxing, where they hit each other in the head. Football, where they run into each other at high speed. Hockey, where they slide around on frozen water while hitting a small object with sticks. And they do this for fun? Thrix asked. Some of them do it professionally, Na Young said. They get paid to play these games in front of crowds. Other humans watch these violence games for entertainment? Zilof sounded horrified. Millions of them, Dr. Eugene confirmed. Some of our most popular events involve humans competing to see who can survive the most difficult challenges. The alien representatives looked at each other with expressions of shock and confusion. There's more, Dr. Glix continued. Humans have something called extreme sports, activities specifically designed to be as dangerous as possible while still being survivable. Such as, Elder Rowlix asked nervously, jumping out of flying vehicles with only a cloth parachute to slow their fall, throwing themselves off high, platforms attached to elastic ropes, riding down mountains on small boards at incredible speeds. They jump out of aircraft for pleasure? Thrix's voice cracked. Some do it hundreds of times, Na Young said. They say it's relaxing, Chang-ho checked his watch. Speaking of which, I should get going. I'm taking some Quinn researchers bungee jumping this afternoon. Your what? Zilof's crystals turned pale. Bungee jumping. You jump off a bridge with a rope tied to your legs. Don't worry, it's perfectly safe. Only a few humans die doing it each year. Only a few? Dr. Glix made a strangled sound. Out of millions of jumps, Chang-ho said cheerfully. The odds are excellent. As the meeting continued, reports came in from across the galaxy. Human traders were setting up shops in radiation zones that killed other species. Human explorers were mapping planets so hostile that no one else would land on them. Human colonists were building cities in places that other races used as weapons testing ranges. The colony ship New Horizons is ready for departure, Dongmin announced. Captain Mi Young will be leading the first joint expedition beyond the Galactic Rim. Beyond the Rim? Elder Rollix whispered. Nothing lives out there. It's empty space, filled with deadly radiation and rogue planets. Perfect for exploration, Dr. Yujin said. No crowds, no traffic, plenty of room to spread out. Captain Mi Young's voice came over the communication system from her ship. Control. This is New Horizons. We're ready to depart. All systems are green. Captain, Dongmin said into his microphone. Your alien crew members are expressing concerns about the risks of deep space exploration. Risks? Mi Young laughed. Where we're going, we won't need life support systems. We'll just need to pack some coffee and maybe a few board games for the long nights. Through the station's windows, they could see the massive colony ship undocking. It was painted with symbols from every species in the Alliance. Humans and aliens, working together to explore the unknown. You know, Thrix said quietly, when I first shot Commander Hyunwoo with that plasma rifle, I thought humans were the weakest species in the galaxy. What do you think now? Dr. Yujin asked. Thrix watched the colony ship disappear into the void between stars. I think the galaxy just got a lot more interesting. Elder Rallix nodded slowly. And a lot more dangerous. Same thing, Na Young said with a smile. Outside, the colony ship New Horizons sailed into the cosmic darkness, carrying beings who treated the universe's deadliest regions as their new home. Behind them, the galaxy was already changing, becoming braver and stronger because humans had shown them that impossible things were just things nobody had tried hard enough to do yet. The age of safe, predictable galactic civilization was over. The age of human exploration had begun.